Okay, guys. Okay, so going back to the book, it's resuming on the book about halachos of Shabbos. Okay, so sorry, I lost the place here. Okay, let's see. Okay, something very practical here. Roasting meat in direct exposure to a fire. Whereas meat cooking in a pot, even without any liquids, may be put up raw before Shabbos, roasting raw meat in direct exposure to a fire is subject to the following guidelines. According to Shulchan Aruch, food may never be left in direct contact with coals unless it can reach ma'achal ben drusai on both sides before Shabbos. I think that's mostly cooked. That's what I think it means. And then it continues, food that is exposed to the coals but not directly touching them may be left to roast if one of the following conditions is fulfilled. So I think by coals in ancient times, that means your stove or your grid, your bride grid. I'm sure it means that it is a fast cooking food, or even if it is slow cooking food, but it is in an oven sealed with clay. Then the Rama says, there is no difference between food that is merely exposed to or actually touching the coals in either case. It is excuse me, it is permitted if one of the following conditions is fulfilled. So this is what the Rama says, 3 conditions. It can reach ma'achal ben drusai before Shabbos. 2, it is in a sealed oven, regardless of any other factors. And C, it is fast cooking food and is in a closed, although not sealed oven. And the last point here, food that is as good raw as cooked has the status of food that has reached ma'achal ben drusai. When roasting directly on top of the coals, one must wait until the coals are extinguished before removing the meat. One may most likewise make sure not to cover the food while it is roasting, as doing so hastens the cooking process and is thus considered bishul. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Rav Meirthorpe. Much appreciated, mate.
Rosh Hashiva.
So, is that basically the Gemara challenged a buyer's position from our Mishnah, because we learned in our Mishnah, if the fact that one stole an ox or sheep was established by the testimony of 2 witnesses, and the fact that he slaughtered or sold the stolen animal was established by the exact same witnesses as well, and they were then found to be zomamim, which is conspiring witnesses, they pay everything, the entire 4-fold or 5-fold payment. Now, just to review, what does that 4 or 5-fold payment comprise of? The first is the kefil payment, which is the 2-fold penalty, because the pasuk says, and he shall pay double. Okay, meaning the thief. So if these people accuse the thief, what they intended to do to this innocent victim is done to them. So the conspiring witnesses pay the 2-fold penalty for accusing this person that is innocent of theft. Okay, and then they pay an additional 2-fold or 3-fold payment for being exposed as zomamim on the slaughter or sale, depending on whether they accused this person of stealing an ox or a sheep. So that's very, very clear. So again, we're talking about the same set of witnesses. Now, is not the Mishnah referring to a case where they first testified about the theft and then testified again about the slaughter? So what is this talking about? This is talking about where the testimony didn't occur on the same day. So they did not testify about the theft and slaughter at the same time. That's what you've got to bear in mind of what we've discussed so far. Rather, for example, they testified on Tuesday that they saw the theft occur on a Sunday. And then on the Wednesday, they came to the court with a new accusation and say that they saw the thief slaughter or sell the stolen animal on the Monday. In other words, it happened at 2 separate time junctures, their testimony. Okay. So, and they were subsequently then rendered as zomamim, conspiring witnesses with respect to the testimony on the theft. And they were then rendered zomamim with respect to the testimony on the slaughter. So what we are saying is then, 2 witnesses came on the Thursday and testified that the first witnesses were with them elsewhere on the Sunday when the theft is supposed to have taken place. Now, what happened is 2 more witnesses came on the Friday and testified that the very same witnesses that accused this innocent person of theft, that said that basically on the Mondays when he slaughtered the animal, is they said, you couldn't have been with them on the Monday because we heard you testify on the Wednesday to this, but in fact you were with us on the Monday. So that's when the slaughter or sale was meant to take place. So it's saying, based on that, if it should enter your mind that a Zomaim witness, a conspiring witness, it uses the Zomaim in the singular here just simply because in Deuteronomy Devarim chapter 18 verse 19, it talks about in the singular, but obviously here it can apply to 2 witnesses as well. So if it should enter your mind that a conspiring witness is disqualified retroactively from the moment he gave his false testimony, then these witnesses, since they were rendered Zomamin on their testimony regarding the theft, it has been retroactively revealed that when they testified about the slaughter, they were actually disqualified from testifying. In other words, we're saying once it was proven on Thursday that they testified falsely on the Tuesday regarding the theft, okay, because the second set of witnesses came on the Thursday and said whatever they came to tell you at the court on Tuesday wasn't true. Regarding the theft that happened on Sunday, they were with us at a bride. So it had been established from the Tuesday already that they were no longer qualified to serve as witnesses. So their testimony on Wednesday regarding the slaughter didn't constitute testimony by witnesses. That's according to Rashi. Okay. And what does this actually mean? Well, the question then goes, why do they pay for being exposed as Zomaming on the slaughter? Because what's actually meant to happen there is that the punishment for Zomamim witnesses applies only to witnesses who gave false testimony. But the witnesses here were disqualified at the time they gave their testimony. They are not subject to the Hazamah penalty. So what we are saying is here is that if you've got 2 witnesses, okay, that were exposed as being conspiring regarding the theft, why should they have to pay for the slaughter? Because if they were rendered to be false witnesses regarding the theft, then there's no payment for slaughter. If there's no if there's no theft, you can't be accused of having to pay a 3-fold payment for slaughter or selling of the animal because it could be yours. So the minute you accuse this innocent person of having stolen the animal and it's proven that that a witness was false, there's no case for slaughtering or selling the animal, because that slaughtering or selling of the animal for the penalty is based on the theft charge sticking. That's the question that's asked by the Gemara. So it says, well, then why are they made to pay for the slaughter part? We understand why they don't pay for the theft part. So the Gemara answers with what are we dealing with here? With a case where they were first rendered Zomamin on the slaughter and then rendered Zomamin on the theft. So what we are saying is here, they were exposed as conspiring witnesses on the slaughter on the Thursday, and they were not exposed as Zomamim on the theft until the Friday. So at the time they were exposed as Zomamim on the slaughter, it hadn't been revealed that they were disqualified when they testified about it. So therefore they're subject to Hazamah. So what we are saying is here is that at the point that they were caught out for lying about the slaughter, it doesn't mean that the person, number one, didn't steal the animal, because it could have been that 2 witnesses didn't like this guy very much. He was a thief. But what they wanted to, in fact, get him to do was pay a 3-fold. Because part of our Mishnah says, if the thief actually stole it, he pays the 2-fold, but there could be witnesses that come around afterwards and accuse him of the slaughter or sale just because they don't like him. And then there's a 3-fold penalty, of which when they're caught out, the Eidim Zomamim pay. But the thief still pays the 2-fold, unless the Zomamim are caught out for the theft. So what we are saying is this sort of incident can only occur if the witnesses, the single set of witnesses, are testifying on 2 separate occasions. Because if they're testifying, Kevin, in one occasion, it's, as you remember the other day, it's within one utterance. So they kind of cooked their own goose. But if it's in two separate occasions, and false witnesses come and testify to the fact that they couldn't have witnessed the slaughter or selling of the animal on the Monday, because they were with another group of people, they rendered Zomamim on the slaughter. But it doesn't mean they rendered Zomamim on the theft. And since that occurs, it would be a bit of a problem. Okay, so the Gemara renews its challenge. Why? Because in the final analysis, guys, it doesn't matter, because when they are later rendered to be Zomamim on the theft, it's retroactively revealed that when they testified about the slaughter, they were actually disqualified from testifying. Why, guys?
Because the theft never took place.
No, the theft did take place. What doesn't take place? Well, yes, if the theft doesn't take place, how does it affect the slaughter, Gav?
Then the slaughter, there can't be a penalty, because the slaughter can't be, because then it's his own animal. So there's nothing's gone wrong. So no penalties owed.
Exactly. So when they were convicted on Thursday of testifying falsely about the slaughter, they weren't yet known to have been disqualified once they, and then once they were exposed on Friday as Zomamim regarding the theft, it's been revealed that they were in fact actually ineligible to testify against the slaughter. Because if there's no theft, there's no slaughter or sale penalty. So the earlier conviction for Hazamah regarding the slaughter should be set aside. So it was saying it's one thing if the court rendered a verdict where it turns around and says, okay, they're caught out to be falsely testifying about the slaughter. Court is adjourned. We make the Eidim Zomamim pay the threefold payment. You could say then, okay, so that makes sense. And then regarding the theft, they haven't been accused yet of being conspiring witnesses. And when they're accused of that, then they pay for the theft, because the trial occurred over two separate dates. So they're two separate testimonies. But in our particular case, it's saying when it comes to light, that the witnesses are in fact were caught out lying about the theft. There shouldn't be a penalty on the slaughter. It should either be reversed, or if they paid, refunded, or else they just pay the double penalty regarding the theft, because that's the only one that can stick. In other words, why? Because if the Eidim Zomamim regarding the theft, then there was no slaughter that took place, so the conspiring witnesses cannot then pay for the slaughter, because they're ineligible, because there was no slaughter if they'd proven false witnesses regarding the theft. But the Gemara is saying, well, there is still a bit of a problem, because at the point that they realized that they were false witnesses regarding the theft, why then do they have to pay, according to our Mishnah, testimony on the slaughter? That's the question of the Gemara. So now, Gavin, for sure you understand the question. Because we learned in our Mishnah they still have to. So the Gemara answers, the law is that the ruling stated in the Mishnah applies only when they testified with respect to the theft and slaughter at one single juncture, and were subsequently rendered Zomamim on both the theft and the slaughter. I'm going to explain what that means now. So, example, right? They testified on the slaughter. Okay, hang on a second. So let's just take the case where they testified on Tuesday that the defendant stole the animal on Sunday, right? And slaughtered it on a Monday. Because they testified about the theft and slaughter at the same time, meaning there wasn't a Tuesday trial and a Wednesday trial. There was just one single trial, and they made a double accusation within one court appearance, one statement after another. And they testified it virtually one sentence after another. even if we disqualify them retroactively for the testimony about the theft, they're still considered to have been qualified witnesses at that time they testified about the slaughter. Because there's a law that witnesses can retract his testimony within the time of an utterance, which means a false witness is not disqualified for giving false testimony until that amount of time has passed after the conclusion of his testimony. In other words, he's put his foot in his mouth. It's too late to retract. When they testify to the theft, they immediately afterwards, within the time of an utterance, testified to the slaughter. They were still qualified to testify, even though afterwards it had been established that they lied about the theft. And because they did it in one junction, they are subject to the hazamah penalty for both parts of their testimony. But if they appeared the single set of witnesses at two different times, and the first time they spoke about the theft, and 2 days later they spoke about the slaughter, and they were only caught out by, as far as the slaughter is concerned, it doesn't mean they were lying about the theft, because they're seen as two separate testimonies. So therefore, in that particular case, they only have to pay on the theft. In that time, they only have to pay for the theft and not the slaughter, because basically there's no slaughter charge or selling charge, because they're rendered incapacitated as far as that's concerned. And the minute the person isn't accused of theft, he cannot be accused of transgressing the law of slaughtering and then theft or sale. So that's the bottom line. Rashi said it doesn't help. Rashi said at the end of the day, he has to be accused, the witnesses have to be accused falsely about the slaughter first. Otherwise, they're eligible even at two different junctions for the theft and slaughter penalty, unless they're accused of the penalty for the slaughter first. Does that make sense as to why, guys, or not?
Can't be retroactive.
No. We're not talking about a buyer. A buyer has no problem either way. Because as far as a buyer is concerned, there is retroactive disqualification of witnesses. This isn't even an argument according to a buyer. If they're proven to be ineligible for lying about the slaughter, why should we believe them about the theft? That's a buyer's one. So anything that they've said should be disqualified. According to Rava, it's a bit of a different case. If within a single day's trial they said he stole it, then he slaughtered it, it's considered as one testimony. And then if they're caught out lying, they pay fully for the theft, twofold payment, and the false witnesses pay fully the threefold payment above that if it's an ox, or twofold payment if it's a sheep. So in other words, they're paying a fourfold or fivefold payment because they lied in one statement. But if the trial was in 2 different days, and then witnesses come afterwards, Kevin, and say that they couldn't have testified to the slaughter of this innocent person of the animal. Sorry, the innocent person wasn't slaughtered. This innocent defendant never slaughtered an animal that he stole because they couldn't have witnessed the slaughter. They weren't there on the same day. So when they found to be false witnesses regarding the slaughter, they immediately pay the twofold payment for the sheep or threefold for the ox, finished. And then the next day, witnesses said their first part of the testimony is incorrect because, in fact, they couldn't have witnessed the theft either because they weren't there. So therefore, they pay the double penalty for the theft. That's a case in which our Mishnah says there's a fourfold or fivefold penalty. But there's not a fourfold or fivefold penalty if it's at 2 different time junctures, okay? And they regarded Adam Zomamim on the theft, because then we cannot take there is no accusation that they can make on the slaughter or sale because they're already disqualified as witnesses. It could be the own guy's animal he's selling or slaughtering, exactly as Gavin said. However, how does our Mishnah reconcile it? It says, well, it can only occur where there would be a payment on the slaughter if they were not rendered Edim Zomamim yet with regards to the theft. And the only way that could happen is if it's a single group of witnesses testifying at 2 different time junctures. But if they tested and they were then accused of being Edim Zomamim and weren't able to witness the slaughter, then they have to pay the threefold in the slaughter. Then afterwards, when they're accused of being Edim Zomamim regarding the theft, then fine. But if not, they still pay for the slaughter. They're not disqualified. The only time they're disqualified is if it's at 2 different time junctures for the slaughter and they were accused of being Edim Zomamim for the theft. However, if it was on one trial date where they said that this person stole an animal and then slaughtered or sold it, they would have to pay the 4 or 5-fold penalty because it's done. They were proven to be false witnesses within the utterance of a statement. In other words, it's seen as one testament. It's not broken up. And that's it as far as the review of what we've done before. Okay, we can send a new link. Is it making any sense, Jeff?
Okay, I want to speak, yeah. The one I understand is if it's if they do it the fault thing in one case, okay, at the same time the slaughter and the witness at the same time in the one case, then they got to pay for everything. But if it's in 2 separate cases, okay, they only pay for the one that they're falsely accused of. So let's say, for example, he witnessed the slaughter, and he said he witnessed slaughter, but he couldn't have been there. Okay. If it was in the first time where they witnessed everything in one case, the both of them witnessed at the same time, saying in the same case that he killed it and he slaughtered it. Okay, then they have to pay everything, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, 5-fold. But if they witnessed, let's say on the Monday, the one was the slaughter. The slaughter. The slaughter and the. Oh, my brain's going.
Theft. You mean the theft and
the theft. So the slaughter and the theft and the slaughter. Okay, and it was on 2 separate days. They witnessed this. Like he witnessed on the Tuesday, and then they came back on the Wednesday and said on the Wednesday he did this, and they were found fault witnesses because it couldn't be. He's only responsible for the latter one, not the previous one.
You almost right.
Or did I get that wrong?
You almost right. You made 3 slight.
Only 3.
But you're so tired. Instead of saying theft and slaughter, you said slept with his dog. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. That's why this is not a Haredi show. Mate, you get me laughing.
Yeah. Well, you better stop and remember to re-record from you.
No, it's delightful. I love our share. I love the fact that we can joke about such things. So what we're saying something a little bit different, because the question that came up in the Gemara, just first steps first, we're just waiting for after, was that vulgar? Should I delete it off the share?
Yeah.
What did Kevin say?
Yes.
I thought it was a valiant attempt by him. It was actually quite good. I was actually quite impressed.
Yes. No, I think he did well.
I thought he was tossing. He's damn close. So I thought it was very good.
Okay, it's quite impressive. You got very close. So let's just see how it was built up, Gab, and then you'll see.
Okay.
Let's just keep it step by step. Our question is that our Mishnah says that if there was a single set of witnesses and they were found to be conspiring witnesses, they pay the entire 4-fold or 5-fold. Okay? Now, generally the order is that there's an accusation of theft and then of slaughter. Okay, and then they were rendered conspiring witnesses. But the question arises is why would they have to be paying for the slaughter? Let's just have clarity of how we're bringing the statement across. Why? Because if you rendered a conspiring witness on the theft, it disables being charged this innocent person on it actually disables their testimony. All right, let's just put it simply. The conspiring witnesses should be paying the 3-fold for the slaughter because they accused an innocent person. But if they're proven to be false witnesses regarding the theft, how do they get to pay for the slaughter? Right? Because at that point, their testimony is disabled and thrown out of court because they're caught out for lying about the theft. So if there's no theft, there's no slaughter or sale penalty. They can't make this guy, this innocent victim, defendant, pay for it because their testimony has been disabled at the point of theft. So even if they're accused of Adam Zomamim on the slaughter, it won't stick. Because if they rendered falsely accusing this person on the theft, then their testimony is disregarded with regards to the slaughter or sale. So therefore, why should the false witnesses be made to pay the threefold payment on the slaughter? That's the question. Okay, so why I'm differing from what Arthur's saying is we have to get the order of it right. Firstly, why the question arose. Because if they accused falsely of both, there shouldn't be a slaughter payment at all by the conspiring witnesses. At the point where they were caught out as being false witnesses regarding the theft, they're disqualified. And therefore, since their testimony is disqualified, how can their testimony regarding the slaughter be valid to make this person pay because they're already caught out on the theft? As much as we don't like them, they couldn't have used their testimony if they were disqualified at that point, because a witness has to be eligible in order to testify. They weren't at that point of the theft. So why do we make them pay for the slaughter? So I want you to answer that for me, Arthur, and then I know you've got a good understanding of it.
I'm confused now, totally.
Okay, I know. So Gavin, what about...
There's a simple way of explaining it, like an easy way, like point one, because...
All right, fine.
You're explaining in depth and my brain's a simple brain.
No, you're very smart. Listen, okay, so let's just go for it in a simple way, guys. The Gemara doesn't like a bias's position of this retroactive disqualification, okay? Now, this is not truly a bias for the simple reason is, my question on this is that a bias says retroactive disqualification would be automatic. But let's just say this challenges a bias position because Rava, you wouldn't have a question with this according to Rava. Because if they were accused of, as far as the theft and slaughter is concerned, if they were accused on the as far as the, all right, let me keep it simple. All right, Arthur, point by point. The Gemara's problem with this is as follows: is that our Mishnah says that if a single group of witnesses testify and are found to be conspiring, they pay the fourfold or fivefold payment. What's the problem with this? Is that the minute they were accused of being false testimony regarding the theft, why should they pay for the slaughter? Because at that point, they're not eligible witnesses anymore.
Okay.
Does that make sense as a question, guys?
Yeah.
Okay, Kev, does that make sense?
How can there be a slaughter if there wasn't a theft?
Exactly. So why should there be
So they're not reliable witnesses, yeah.
So if they're unreliable regarding the theft, even if they want to make this innocent person pay for the slaughter, at the point that they're seen as conspiring witnesses and lying of being at that place to witness the theft, they're disregarded as witnesses. How could they then be eligible to become Adam Zomamim? Because even if witnesses come afterwards and said they were lying about the slaughter, they're already being disqualified regarding the theft. Why should they pay for the slaughter as Adam Zomamim? They're not Adam Zomamim with regards to the slaughter. They've already been disqualified on the theft. Because the logical occurrence is you're accused first of the theft and then the slaughter. That's the only way they can make the slaughter charge stick. So we cannot apply the hazamah, the reciprocal penalty, to these witnesses, because if they were caught out by the theft, they're disabled, and then the testimony regarding the slaughter isn't eligible to stick on this victim. Therefore, we cannot give them the reciprocal penalty. So why does the Mishnah say that they have to pay it? That's the question.
Well, if it's to pay what, the threefold or the twofold or the fivefold?
Well, no. Let's keep it simple. They always have to pay the twofold, the careful payment, because they were conspiring
Of the theft.
witnesses that couldn't have seen this guy commit a theft because they were somewhere else. The second group of witnesses, the first group, couldn't have been there. They were with them somewhere else. So then they have to pay the double penalty, the careful payment for theft. But we're saying, why does our Mishnah now make them pay the threefold payment with regards to the slaughter? Because at the point that they were seen as false witnesses regarding the theft, they now become ineligible to testify regarding the slaughter. It just can't stick because there was no theft. So why would our Mishnah make them pay the threefold for Adam Zomamim? Because even if they wanted to conspire, their testimony falls away the minute they are disqualified retroactively according to a buyer. Do you get the question? Guys, are you okay?
I'm fine.
Okay, so what's the answer then? Let's see if you guys remember the answer. That's a simple statement. Arthur, you did well. But I'm just saying, if you keep in context of the question and answer, it helps you guys. What was the answer the Gemara gave?
But just give me the question. I'll give that.
The logical question is, we cannot apply the Hazamah reciprocal penalty if we go according to a buyer for the false witnesses as far as the slaughter is concerned, because the minute they were caught out lying about the theft, they are disqualified as witnesses retroactively according to a buyer, and therefore not eligible to testify regarding the slaughter. Their testimony is struck off the record. And therefore, why should they, since their testimony is no longer valid regarding the slaughter, doesn't matter what they try to do to this person, it wouldn't have worked. We only apply the reciprocal penalty if it would have worked. But it couldn't have worked. It's like all of a sudden, these witnesses being accused of robbers, okay? Even if they try to give the other person the death penalty, they're already disqualified based on their character assessment. So in this case, they can't, even if they want this innocent person to pay for the slaughter or selling of the animal, can't make it stick. Because at the point where they have to pay the twofold penalty for being conspiring witnesses of the theft, retroactively, even if they're found to be guilty regarding the slaughter, a buyer said that from the moment they were accused of being false witnesses, at the theft stage, the testimony struck off the roll. So then how could they pay the reciprocal penalty on the slaughter according to our Mishnah? That's the problem that Gemara has with a buyer of retroactive disqualification.
Isn't that also coming through when it happens on the same utterance? Then that's how it solves it.
Okay, but articulate what. Firstly, articulate it in the right order. I'm happy to hear whatever you have to say. Just articulate it as an answer to this question in the right order.
So if the conspiring witnesses, if the case happens in one sitting, so it's one case. So that first they what's it called? They admit or whatever they claim that they saw the first lot of guys doing the theft. First they claim that the guys actually did the theft, and then they claim that they witnessed the slaughter all in one incident. So if they claim to have witnessed both in one iteration or one instance, then you can't have then the penalty will apply, because you can't have retroactive in one utterance. It's too quick. So that's kind of my feeling on it. That you can't have retroactive. It's impossible. It's happening right there and then. But I think they give a slightly different answer to that. But it's the same thing. If it's in separate occasions, then you can have retroactive. So if it's done on two separate occasions, like on the Thursday and the Tuesday, and if the first one's cancelled and the theft's cancelled, then obviously by default that means the second lot of witnesses can't possibly it can't be valid. The penalty can't be valid because their testimony can't be valid. But in this particular, when it's in one utterance, their testimony is valid, even though they were lying about the theft, because it's in the same utterance. So because of that, that penalty is still applicable.
Excellent, excellent. So, guys, what Gavin says is correct. We just switched the order out. It's perfect. What we are saying is when somebody says, even if they accuse this guy of stealing the animal, Arthur, and then selling it on a separate day, as long as their testimony of the single set of witnesses is within one utterance, in other words, in one statement, they basically cook their own goose. So when they're accused of, even as far as the theft is concerned, and the slaughter comes immediately after it, they lied about one testimony, so they're whacked with a full fivefold payment. Exactly that, if it's in one utterance. It doesn't matter if they say they viewed the accused of stealing it on a Sunday and slaughtering it on Monday. It doesn't matter of the sequence of how they accused him. As long as their accusation has occurred in one sitting, like one sentence after another, they've nailed themselves. They then pay the fivefold payment because you can't separate the testimony. So as soon as they're found guilty on the one side of the testimony of having to pay the reciprocal penalty because they want this guy to pay, we make them pay the full penalty because it's in one utterance. That's the answer. However, we say, what do we do? How does our Mishnah make them pay for the slaughter if the witnesses give their testimony in two separate time junctures about the incident? Because, again, the minute they accuse this person of theft on the one day, and then 2 days later they come back and they say, yo, we saw him slaughter or sell the animal, and witnesses come to testify that these witnesses couldn't have been there at the time of the theft, then it's a problem according to a buyer, because why would our Mishnah make them pay the fivefold if they did it in two separate statements? Because they're already disqualified at the point of theft, where the testimony regarding the slaughter wouldn't stick, even if they try to make it stick, because they're disqualified because it's proven that he never stole the animal. So how come a Mishnah makes that on a case where it's not a single utterance, pay for both the theft and the slaughter? What would be a situation in which that would occur, Arthur?
I don't know.
Okay, fair enough. Kev, do you know?
Where the Zimmerman would have to pay the fivefold in total.
When it was in two different statements. Gavin's completely right. If it's in one, they put loose. But if it's in two separate ones, why would they pay for the slaughter?
And the kefil. And the theft.
Yeah.
Why would they pay if it was a two?
Gavin, you can also answer.
That's if the dates correlate, even if it's a false accusation. Yeah, I mean, went over this. You try, it's
okay. I think Arthur's done damn well tonight. I think Gavin's done well. You've done well. I think you've just got to, Gavin, do you have an idea?
That's Russia, yeah?
No, not 100%. I honestly thought that if it was two occurrences, that by default, because if it's two occurrences and the first one, there's no ways you can pay that penalty. If the first one, if it's proven that it's false witnesses on the first testimony. The only way I can see this working if there wasn't false testimony on the first one.
Okay, so you close. You close.
That's the only way I would guess. That's how I'd guess it based on that logic.
Okay, so Gavin's close. So the only way we can say that, because it has to work with a buyer. If our Mishnah doesn't work with a buyer, then there's a problem with retroactive disqualification. The simple answer is this, is that the false witnesses, Kevin, came to say that these first set of witnesses that testified to both the theft and the slaughter were not there when I accused this guy of slaughtering the animal on the Monday, because they were in Hyde Park shopping center going to see a movie. So therefore, if they accused of this being false witnesses on the slaughter first, okay, at that point, they are made to pay on the slaughter. Now, they haven't been accused of theft yet, okay? They haven't been accused of theft yet. So if the false witnesses only come about the slaughter, they then pay the threefold payment for an ox or twofold on a sheep, whether they slaughtered it or sold it or whatever, because these witnesses try to make this person pay 3 times for a stolen or slaughtered ox. But it doesn't stick, because those witnesses were proved to be not there to view the crime because they were in Hyde Park. They couldn't have been in at that time in Yeovil to view it. They couldn't have been there. So that's pretty straightforward. And then afterwards, there were another set of witnesses that said, hey, we heard about this other incident. These witnesses, the first set, also conspired about the theft because they were with us on the day they accused this person of the theft. The theft occurred on the Sunday. They then said that this guy slaughtered the animal on the Monday. So on the Tuesday, they testified about the Sunday slaughtering, the Sunday theft, and on the Wednesday, they accused this guy of slaughtering the animal on the Monday. So on Thursday, it comes that a second set of witnesses said, listen, they were with us in Hyde Park regarding the slaughter. So the judge says, fine, you made this person pay the threefold. We don't know if the theft is right or not. But as far as the slaughter, the false testimony gets him to pay the threefold. And then then the original thief would have to pay the twofold. But then other witnesses come and say that they also lied about the theft. Then they're made to pay the twofold. So the only way that this could work in our Mishnah, which says the full fivefold is payment, is made in terms of 2 separate dates of testimonies, not in one utterance, is if they falsely found out to be witnesses regarding the slaughter before the theft. That's the only way. Otherwise, if they're accused of being false witnesses regarding the theft, they wouldn't have to pay the slaughter part. It would disqualify them as witnesses. Does it make sense, Arth?
Yeah, that makes sense.
All right, so Arth and Kevin, Arth, do you want to just give it back to me, that last part? Just unmute yourself.
Yeah, my brain's fried then. I'm exhausted.
No, I know.
Okay, so the last part, I'll try to remember it. So I'm trying to figure it out in my head. My mind's gone blank now. Okay, if he was accused, okay, I understood now that my mistake was it wasn't the separate days; it was in the same utterance. Was the difference? Okay.
No, we talk about both, but the same utterance, Gavin, is right. So that you understood completely, meaning they basically convicted themselves. If they said in one testimony, I hereby swear that he stole the animal and then he slaughtered the animal, and if they caught having lied about the slaughter, how did they get a court about lying about the slaughter and not the theft? Well, they said that he stole the animal. We witnessed him steal the animal on the Sunday, and then he slaughtered it on the Monday. And then the other people that turned around and said, hey, you couldn't have stolen on the Monday. You were in Cape Town with us. So then, because it was one utterance, it's seen as one testimony, and they're made to pay both for the theft and the slaughter. Bang.
Okay.
That's easy. So that's, as Gavin said, beautiful, Gav. That's done.
Okay.
Now we're saying there's a problem. Because if their testimony was on 2 separate days, why would the Gemara say that they would have to pay for the slaughter? Because the minute they rendered false conspiring witnesses on the theft, the slaughter charge falls away because they're then disqualified as witnesses retroactively according to a buyer. So if they're seen that the theft charge is the false one, they can't make this innocent person pay for the slaughter. They would have to pay for the slaughter, but they can't because they were disqualified in the theft already as witnesses. Their testimony on the slaughter isn't counted. So our Mishnah says they do pay on the slaughter. How's it possible? So what we said. Okay, is Adina still speaking to you? It's not a problem. I think Arthur's just talking to his daughter. Let's just give him a minute.
You see that? You see that?
Yeah, a minute. I know.
No, I just see if you can see the time on my watch. Yeah, I put the light on. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Oh, you can see it. I just wondered if it came across on the screen. Okay. No, it's fine. There's no.
It was beautifully, Kevin.
Fantastic. Was it delightful, Gavin?
Absolutely delightful, yeah.
Gavin, you said
Okay.
it very succinctly, by the way, about the one utterance. It's very clear.
No, but
because
I think
because
I've got this as well.
because they're two separate incidents. You can't do it.
On the second part as well.
I mean, just logically, they're two separate events that you usually wouldn't happen on this at the same time.
No, it's not the events that are a problem. That's why it uses the example. It's an excellent question Kevin's asking. So Kevin's asking this. It's not about the event, because Kev, what happens is, according to Gavin's answer, you are 100% correct. It would never happen at the same time. You don't quickly steal an animal and slaughter it on the same day. What would happen is, often if you steal an animal, you'd have to find a buyer to sell it to them, or you would have to find somebody to help you shecht it. You don't have this opportunity necessarily in the same day. So therefore, what happens is, it's still one testimony. So even if the person says, I saw this person steal the animal on the Sunday and they slaughtered it on Monday, it doesn't mean that the incident has to occur in one case. It means that the testimony of the witnesses occurs in one case. And therefore, if they're accused of the theft, of not being able to witness a theft because they were somewhere else, they're made to pay for both the theft and the slaughter, because it's seen as one testimony. But as far as the Gemara is concerned, if the testimonies occurred in two separate days, and they were accused of being false witnesses and couldn't have been there to view the theft, then in that case, Kevin, why would they pay for the slaughter? Because they disqualified at that point. So when they found out to be lying about the slaughter, they wouldn't have to pay the reciprocal payment on the slaughter, because they were already invalidated as witnesses on the theft. So what the Gemara is saying is that the only way it could work with the buyer with retroactive disqualification is if witnesses came to testify that the first set of witnesses couldn't have been there to witness the slaughter because they were with this other group somewhere else, and therefore they have to pay for the false testimony on the slaughter. And then afterwards, another set of witnesses say that they weren't actually there to view the thief steal the animal either, and therefore they have to pay the double kefil. In that way, it goes according to our Mishnah that even for retroactive disqualification, in that case, they'd have to pay the fivefold payment. That's all. That's it. We're done. It's that simple. I hope I've explained it well in the end.
Yes,
Repeat it again. Just you said it very quickly. I know we.
Yeah.
You did say no. You see, it seems like it's simple, but it's never simple. It's like
It's never
not
simple. I agree with you.
And even if you go over it, it's like it's.
not
But then at the
simple.
end of the day,
With me.
if another question, I was just thinking,
Sure.
if the thief, if the person stole it on the day, and the Edim Zumamim, and it was stolen on that day, but they weren't actually there, but it was stolen, and then it was slaughtered. Let's say they witnessed the slaughter. If the guy did it anyway, then even if they Edim Zumamim, they try to catch him out on hearsay, but hearsay was truth, even though they didn't physically witness it, but it did actually happen on that day. Then what?
Kevin,
I hear what you say.
Kevin, if you want to commit a homicide, you invite somebody to the park and you show them the beautiful scenery and you hit them at the back of the head with a spade and no one's around. Did you actually kill them? Well, not on earth, and Shemayim, yes. But if there are no witnesses, what does it mean? As I said, if a tree falls in the forest and the tree no one hears it, does it actually fall? So any crime you ever commit, make sure that you tell no one and make sure there are no witnesses. Yeah. I'm not advising that. I'm just saying
Well, I'm writing this all down. What are you talking about?
So, Arthur, all we are saying in a few sentences, because what I appreciate about what Arthur said is how do we boil it down to a few sentences, Arthur? So you were busy with the Dina. Have you got a minute?
Yeah.
All right. So then just unmute yourself because you might want to ask me a question if it's okay with you. Very simple. Gavin said it perfectly. We don't have a problem if it's with one utterance. In other words, Kevin asked a brilliant question, which you weren't able to hear because you were with the Dina, which I understand, is he said, well, what happens? The guy's not going to commit the theft and the slaughter on one day. It's unlikely. And he's right. It doesn't matter. He can commit the crime over different days. If the testimony is at one point in time said, Your Honor, he stole it on the Sunday and he slaughtered it on the Monday. And he's caught of being a false testimony regarding the Sunday because he was at a braai and he wasn't there.
Mm.
He's made to pay on the theft and the slaughter because it was one statement, one period of time.
Okay.
If it's the same set of witnesses and they make two different court testimonies, so on the Tuesday they accuse him of the theft on the Sunday, and the Wednesday they accuse him on the slaughter of on the Monday. Then in that particular case, they wouldn't, if witnesses come and say that they couldn't have been there on the Sunday to witness the theft because they were with them at the movies, then there is no slaughter charge because these conspiring witnesses were already retroactively disqualified at the point where they falsely accused this guy of theft. So that doesn't work according to a buyer, because our Mishnah says that, why does a Mishnah say that the full payment is made? So the Gemara answers, it does work with a buyer. We're talking about where they were caught out lying about the slaughter first, then they're made to pay the threefold payment. And then afterwards they were caught out about the theft, and then they were made to pay the double payment for the theft. But if they're caught out to be, and that works with our Mishnah, if they're caught out to be lying about the theft, there's no retroactive penalty for the slaughter because they're disqualified as witnesses at the point of theft. That's all. That's all. The slaughter has to come first if it's not in one utterance and it's at two separate testimonies. That's all. That's all. Okay, so Kevin, I think we've got a good grasp of it. We don't have to deal with this anymore. And we can go on to the next subject, the Tanaic argument. Any questions, guys, before we log off? We're done.
Are you logging off now, you mean?
No. I'm saying, well, we're done. Unless you've got a question.
Moving on, you mean? Okay.
Moving right along.
No, that's fine.
But don't worry, Shemaim will take care of all problems.